is going on, everybody? Welcome back to our weekly calls. I'm really sorry I couldn't actually meet with you guys in person this week, but I'm pretty busy. I know you guys are as well, so hopefully this will be a better system. You guys can just watch it on your own, and then next week, hopefully we'll be able to meet up again. So think about what you guys want to see for next week's call. But anyways, let's get into it. So this week's topic: how to prepare for a tournament or a game. Obviously, we have a lot of tournaments throughout the season, and it helps to kind of have a system and a way of preparing yourself throughout the week, the days leading up, the night between. Like that Saturday night, you've already played Saturday, you're going back Sunday. How to keep yourself in the best shape mentally, physically, all the things that we need to do to kind of play our best and put ourselves in the best position to succeed. So without further ado, let's get going. So I'm going to talk about our overall approach. What are the different things that we want to hit on and that we want to make sure are in the best shape for the weekend or any tournament or game? We want our bodies to be at 100%. That's obviously a no-brainer. If we are not feeling our best in our bodies, we're immediately capped, right? If we can't run as fast as we need to, then that's going to hurt us. So number one, we want our bodies to be at 100%. No pain or soreness from injuries or workouts, right? If we're injured, obviously we can't maybe eliminate, any pain. And obviously, if we shouldn't be doing anything, then you shouldn't be playing. But we want to be at the minimal level of pain and especially soreness from any kind of other training you're doing. We want our muscles to be loose and ready to perform, right? If we're super stiff, if we haven't done anything for a week, it's gonna suck. It's going from nothing all the way up to super intense. In-game performance is not gonna be fun. We need sufficient energy and hydration, right? If you eat nothing, if you're on a 3-day fast and you go and play a tournament, your body has none of the fuel it needs, and it's gonna be really difficult to sustain a high energy level throughout the entire tournament. So lots of the right food, especially the day before and the day of. And plenty of hydration and electrolytes so you don't cramp, you don't get injured. Very important. We need to be focused on the right things. You could nail all of your physical stuff, be feeling great, but if you're not in the zone, you're not focused, and you're kind of just all over the place, then a lot of times you're still not going to perform up to your potential. And a lot of times the mental stuff can damage you a lot more if you are not in the right headspace when you're playing. So come prepared with a list of the things that you need to focus on in order to do well. A lot of times you have a couple things that if you're getting those things right, if your mind is trained on those few things, the rest will come naturally, especially if you are an experienced player, if you've got lots of practice. There are things that you are good at and you know you're going to do right every time. So if you fix those few key things that you might trip you up, then you'll be golden. And have your pregame and mental reset rituals. This is something I talked about last week, and I'll link to the presentation from last week. But having some things that you kind of do to put yourself in that ideal mental state going into a game, and having some kind of, small rituals or just things that you do when you're in game and you make a mistake to kind of mentally reset yourself and get yourself focused on your goals and performing at your best. Having those kind of prepared and practiced beforehand so that when those things happen, you're ready for them and you can get yourself and keep yourself in that focused, ideal mindset. And again, Frisbee is a game of a lot of skill, a lot of throwing, a lot of decision making, cutting, footwork, defense, all this stuff, a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills that you need. So make sure that we're practiced on those. We don't want to be touching a disc for the first time in a week coming into a tournament. We don't want to, come into this very intense experience where we want a lot of these skills to be subconscious and just kind of drilled into us, rather than, oh, my flick is really bad and I haven't thrown it in a week and now I have to throw it in game. That is not the scenario that's going to help us get back into the rhythm of throwing a flick again. We want to have that taken care of course, before the weekend. So get some reps in on all the important skills that you're going to need. So throws, cuts, footwork, any of that stuff that you're going to definitely need during the tournament. Make sure you are getting reps with that throughout the week. So training. In the week leading up to a tournament, most people kind of take a few days off, relax, they won't train, and they'll do that to make sure they're prepared for the tournament. And this is kind of unnecessary, right? There are certain things you shouldn't do the day before a tournament, but taking many days off in anticipation of a tournament or a game is kind of just wasting very valuable training time. And a lot of times, if you do that consistently over the long run, you're just missing out on improvement that you could be getting, and even some things you could be doing the days before that will be helpful to you in your game or tournament. So we want to keep training, but we will take a couple measures to make sure that our body is still in good shape for this tournament. So number one, taper off the volume of our training. Now notice, volume is the important part, not intensity. So when you do a workout, let's say you go out and you do some sprints, right? You want to get faster. If a normal sprint workout might include you doing 8 sprints at 100% intensity, again, when we're sprinting, we do want to be going at 100% intensity, that may fatigue your legs. You may wake up the next day and be like, wow, I feel it in my legs, because sprinting is an intense exercise. So maybe before a tournament, instead of saying, hey, sprinting makes my legs hurt, so I'm not going to sprint, we say, all right, sprinting may make my legs hurt if I do 8 reps, but if I show up and do 3, 4, depending on what you are capable of without hampering yourself for the next day, you take plenty of rest in between, keeping your legs moving and keeping yourself in the cycle of training is not only going to help you get those extra benefits, but it's also going to keep your muscles prepared for them when you go into the weekend. And you're still getting some very good high intensity training, but if you just lower that volume, and you could do this for anything like lifting, if you do an hour and a half leg workout usually, maybe not the best idea before a tournament, but select a couple exercises, especially the ones that aren't super taxing, and you can still take them to failure, but you lower that volume and you will probably still be feeling good the next day. And again, how much you lower the volume is up to you. Experiment, see what works. So that's what I said. Do a few reps, go lighter. Keep up that intensity though, because the intensity of our training, really pushing ourselves, even if we're not doing as much, is still going to give us the benefit of that training. Focus on skill work. This is a huge thing that I like to do leading up to a tournament. Instead of just training for raw athleticism, for getting faster and stronger, do things that require a little bit more finesse, but that aren't going to make us super tired. So things like lifting, plyos, intense conditioning might slow us down. If we focus on our throws or our footwork technique or our catching, this is going to give us a lot of benefit and help us improve in different areas of our game, but it's not going to slow us down when it comes to the weekend. And again, like I mentioned before, doing extra throwing the day before helps reinforce those movement patterns that you're going to be using in the tournament and can actually benefit you a lot. So definitely do not skip out on your skill work and consider doing that as a replacement. Again, if you're doing less sprints, less lifting, it may be opening some extra time for you if you can dedicate that extra time towards throwing, footwork, catching, things like that are more skill and pattern based. And do things to keep your body in good shape after training. This is important always, but sometimes less important if you don't have anything crucial going on the next day. But things like stretching, mobility workouts, anything like ice baths, any sort of recovery methods that will help reduce that inflammation and get your body feeling in good shape the next day is especially important after a tournament, and it can allow you to kind of keep going with this training, right? Instead of taking a couple days off to let our body recover, we do some extra stretching, some extra mobility. In combination with that reduced volume, we take an ice bath, and then we're feeling still great the next day, even though we got in some extra training, which is absolutely awesome. Injuries. This is a huge topic. Almost everybody has or will struggle with some nagging injuries throughout their Frisbee career or any sports career. And these are things that probably won't prevent you from playing, but may make you a little bit worse. They may be uncomfortable to play with, and so kind of dealing with these things are a huge way that we can increase our performance on tournaments or games. So, and again, not only just dealing with our injuries, minimizing future injuries, huge key if we stay healthy. So in order to minimize future injuries, prevent the injuries that may be nagging at us from affecting our game, a few steps we can take. Number one, getting official diagnosis on whatever injuries you have. I know you hate going to the doctor. I know you do. I hate it too. It's fucking annoying, right? You have to schedule it, you have to go, you have to take time out of whatever you're doing and go deal with a problem that is probably a no big deal anyways, right? Not always. Even if something is not a critical injury that you may be hugely overlooking, getting an official diagnosis is the first and crucial step to actually making things better. So take that time. If something's been bothering you, especially for an extended period of time, especially if it's something that has been bothering you and you've taken time off of that thing. So let's say my knee was hurting. I took a week off of practice and it's still hurting. That's definitely something that you need to get looked at to make sure that not only it's not serious, but also that you know how to improve it in the future. And honestly, if you just do that step, a lot of times the doctors will give you exactly the information you need to deal with it. But with that official diagnosis, and you know 100% what's going wrong, and especially what's causing it, definitely bring it up. What exactly you're doing, what exactly injured it, obviously, but kind of the training habits that you have so that your doctor knows what in your training regimen, like if I injure my elbow and I've been throwing 100 discs every day, then that's pretty clear indication to the doctor especially that, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's causing that issue. And again, a lot of people, they think, oh, my knee hurts or my ankle hurts. So you can go up on the internet and look up how to reduce knee pain. But there's lots of different kinds of knee pain. There's lots of different kinds of ankle pain. These are some less, some more, some very complicated joints and systems in your body. The human body is an absolute wonder of a machine. It's incredible. And there's a lot of different kinds of stuff that can be going wrong. So seeing a doctor can pinpoint exactly what you're dealing with, whereas you may just think, my knee hurts, but a doctor will be able to tell you, hey, you have patellar tendonitis. That's something that I deal with. And then you can then take the steps to deal with that rather than doing exercises or doing, your own therapy to heal an injury that you don't even have. And then use YouTube and the internet. I actually ask AI for stuff like this pretty regularly in addition to, looking for credible sources on YouTube. It can actually be really, really helpful. And create a routine to deal with the pain. So mitigate whatever pain you're feeling. If you know you're going to be doing something that may aggravate it, and try to strengthen the injured area. A lot of times it's kind of a two-part system. Like you have to mitigate the pain when you know you're going to be doing something stressful, but also have that long-term plan to say, okay, I don't want to be dealing with, like for me, patellar tendonitis. I don't want to be dealing with that forever. So I'm going to try to make it hurt less when I do play. But in the long term, I want to be strengthening that tendon and doing things to make that part of my body able to handle the load that I know I'm going to be putting on it. So in the future that's not an issue anymore. And I can play as much as I want and not have to worry about that. And a lot of these routines are something that you want to be able to and make a part of your daily routine. And consistency is really the key when it comes to rehabbing injuries and strengthening any part of your body. You probably know that if you go to the gym, you can't just go to the gym for a week and look like a bodybuilder. You have to do things consistently over time. So making something part of your daily routine are a really, really important thing to strengthening and eliminating your injuries over time. So using mobility routines to keep all of your joints moving well and to prevent injuries is super huge. If you go in the other resources channel on the Slack, you will see a spreadsheet that I put in that has a lot of good mobility exercises to do. Even if you're not struggling with pain in any of these joints, keeping them moving better and keeping them healthier will honestly have a ton of great effects. I'll mention this probably later in this presentation, I think, but a lot of your joints are connected to each other, I think. Yeah, that's what I put next. But a lot of times problems in one joint, so like your ankle, may be affected by something that's going on in your hips. And you would never know that otherwise. But if you focus on the health of all your joints, like your hips, your knees, your ankles, your shoulders, that can have cascading effects that will make the rest of your body way healthier. And that's definitely worth doing because, of course, injuries suck. So deal with your injuries. Nutrition. Nutrition is a huge, huge, huge part of making you play your best on tournament day. And the nice thing about it is it's not something that you have to do. Obviously, having good nutrition is important. But in terms of affecting directly your play on the weekends, it's something that you can just do on and around that weekend. What you ate on Monday is not going to affect how you play on Saturday for the most part, unless you get sick. But eating the right things right around the time when you play is going to give you a huge benefit if you get it right. So use the following principles. Make sure you have that energy to keep yourself at the highest level, keep yourself going throughout the day, especially later when other people who didn't eat right are starting to peter out. You will have that energy and you will be able to excel. So number 1, carb loading. This is kind of a thing that especially a lot of runners will hear, but it's especially useful for any higher intensity cardiovascular, anything that you're doing that will get your heart pumping, high intensity throughout a long period of time. Absolutely critical, because when your body runs these higher intensity activities, so things like playing Frisbee, assuming that you're not walking around the field and being super lazy, which you really can't do in Frisbee, you're going to have to be running around at least on defense. That burns carbs. So you need to have lots of carbohydrates in your body so that your body can keep replenishing those energy stores as it's using them. Try to maximize the amount of carbs you eat within the 24-hour period. That is the key word there. Everything you eat within that 24-hour period is primarily what's going to be affecting you when you play. So if your game is at 9 a.m. on Saturday, your first game, everything you eat on Friday, assuming you eat at least breakfast after 9 a.m. on Friday, let's just say everything you eat on Friday is going to have an effect on how you play. So prioritizing carbs, things like breads, pasta, potatoes, rice, all that good stuff, fruit, good source of carbohydrates, especially easy to digest. Focus on those things, especially like afternoon, night before, and a hearty breakfast the morning of. If you don't eat breakfast at all, start adding something in. It just makes it a lot easier to maximize and max out those carb stores in your body so that you have the energy to perform well. Stop eating heavy foods around 3 hours before you play. This can be an issue if you're waking up and you don't have a particularly long travel time toward the fields, but around 3 before you play. It's 3 hours. Sorry, I forgot to type the word hours. But that's if you eat too close to when you play, you're going to still be digesting the food. It's still going to be sloshing around your stomach, and that's either going to make you have to poop, which is no bueno, or it's just going to be sapping your energy because your body still has to be digesting that food. And again, we want to be at that max energy level the whole time. So try to, if you have to wake up a little bit earlier to get that meal in before that window so that when you start playing, that's ideal. But if you're still digesting stuff for the first 15 minutes of your first game, that's probably not a huge deal either way. But the key there, don't eat right before you play. And it's probably better to eat a good breakfast and still be digesting it towards the end or towards the beginning of your first game. That's probably okay, especially if you've got a full day of games ahead of you, rather than eat nothing so that you can be in your best shape for the first 15 minutes of the first game, because you're going to be tired after that. Hydration, very important also. Put an extra emphasis on drinking lots of water the day before and the morning of your game. Again, drinking, especially when you're going to be sweating a lot, it's a thing you have to do in advance, right? If I wait till I'm thirsty when I'm in a game, especially in hotter weather, when I'm sweating that water out really fast, your body is just going to be too late. And usually throughout the day of a normal day where you're not doing too much, as you get thirsty, if you drink when you're thirsty, totally fine. But again, when you're sweating a lot, you have to be proactive. You have to be drinking your water ahead of time, and so getting lots of water in you the day before, and especially the morning of, and throughout the day as well, is going to be very important in making sure you don't cramp. And make sure to also include electrolytes, salt. If you want to buy something like Gatorade or Body Armor or Powerade or any one of those sports drinks, or if you have stuff like Liquid IV, which are also electrolytes, that is awesome. But also literally just sprinkling the correct amount of table salt into your water can go a long way in just giving you those electrolytes you need. And one thing I will also add is, especially if you are just drinking lots of water, that will dilute the amount of electrolytes in your blood. So if you are someone who shows up to the fields and they're just pounding their water bottle and just going through it every game, you also want to make sure you're drinking an equally large amount of electrolytes, because drinking more water with less electrolytes will result in more cramps, and that's not good. So during the tournament, also very important, almost equally as important as the day before, though the day before is very important as well. Make sure you're proactive about refueling your carbs. So bring some small snacks. Again, you don't want to eat heavy foods in the middle of the day because you will continue to play, but eat small things. So things like fruit are really good. I like to bring granola bars, but there's lots of great small sources, easily digestible sources, especially of carbs, and especially your water and electrolytes too, during and between your games. And this is going to help your body to keep those stores up so that towards the end of games, towards the end of the day, you're still going to have that energy where everybody else is getting tired. So, like I said, fruits and grains, granola bar, bananas, two really great things to bring along. Bananas also have potassium, which is awesome. And drinking lots of electrolytes. So again, I shout out Liquid IV and Gatorade. There's lots of different drinks and powders that have electrolytes in them. Just pick one that you think tastes good and that you're actually going to drink. There's ones that are more scientifically healthy than others, but as long as you're drinking them, that's the main key. Mental preparation. Very underrated, something I talked about in my last presentation, but definitely something you do not want to skip out on for your tournament, which is, of course, when you need to be performing. This is what we prepare for. So we want to have our goals and our priorities in line to make sure that we know what has to go right, what we have to get right in order for us to play our best and help our team the most. So make a list of things you've reflected on needing to work on after previous tournaments. A lot of times, most teams will do this. They reflect on kind of what they did well as a team, but also individually they encourage reflecting on what you did well and what you need to work on. The things that you come up with after a tournament are usually the most important things. If you go out there and you scored 10 times and you're like, wow, I scored 10 times because I was really good at my cut timing. Okay, well now you know that having good cut timing will lead to a good game. If you threw 4 turnovers trying to break the mark with your around backhand and you just messed it up a lot, and at the end of a tournament you go, man, I really need to work on my around backhand to break the mark and, to reset the disc, and I think that would be really beneficial. Again, if you get that right, that will probably eliminate the biggest pain point that you have. So at the end of a tournament, when you reflect on what went well, that caused me to succeed, what went badly, that caused me to fail, and you keep those things in mind, you can nail the things that make you successful and fix the things that made you play poorly and that had the highest impact. And if you consciously focus on those, most likely they'll improve, and then you can be playing your best. So when you do those reflections at the end of a tournament, write them down, keep them in your head, on your phone, on paper. That's what I like to do. And then bring those fresh in your mind before you're about to play, while you're playing, and those things will help you to succeed based on your own experiences, which is, of course, very valuable. That's a stretching circle. That's usually where, at least we, will do those kind of reflections on what went well. Set goals for the weekend. Goals are really important, and again, this is something I talked about last week, so I won't go into it too much, but having a goal in mind is what allows you to kind of optimize the challenge for yourself, because every game needs to feel challenging enough that it requires your full capacity and your full ability to achieve, but it has to feel achievable. So if you're getting blown out by a team 15-3, it's going to feel impossible to win. You're going to get discouraged. But if you have a good goal that you can still achieve even while the team's getting blown out 15-3, then you're still going to be mentally engaged. You're still going to be focused, and you're still probably going to be playing closer to your best as compared to someone who's completely given up. So set these goals for the weekend. You can set them game by game. You can set them for the whole tournament. Whatever you need to do. And it should be something that's difficult to accomplish, so you have to play really well, but that you can still achieve. And so no matter what happens, you're like, okay, I may have had a bad game, a bad half, a bad point, whatever, but if I lock in, I can still achieve this goal. So what are the main things you need to do to accomplish your goal? Again, obviously set something realistic, set something that will indicate a success for you, right? Like if you're a cutter, don't set a goal of throwing 15 assists, because probably you're not going to throw 15 assists. And if you are throwing 15 assists, you're probably doing something that your role on the team would not necessarily support. So if you're throwing lots of hucks as a cutter, probably it's not what your team wants you to do. Maybe set a goal of having low turnovers or scoring a lot, something like that. So what are the main things that you need to do to accomplish that goal? And write that down. So again, focus on the things that, have the highest negative impact and try to fix those. Think about the things that in the past have had the biggest positive impact, and then think of the things that you need to help you accomplish your goal. And all of those things, bringing them to the front of your mind right before and during your playing time, will have a huge impact on how much you can focus and the things you focus on that will make you play your best. Now, we've ticked all of our boxes. We've gone over a lot of stuff that you can do to cover these different areas. Saturday night, which is, I guess, like for most people at least, the day between your tournament days, is a critical time period, and all of those principles still apply, but there are some special things we can do Saturday night to really make sure our Sunday, which is usually the most important day of the tournament, we are playing at our best. So, number one, eat a large meal at night. The principle of carbo loading still applies. That principle of eating the right things 24 hours before still applies. We want to eat after we're done a nice large meal and include lots of carbs for the next day, so to make sure we have lots of energy, and throw some proteins in there. Again, when you do all this intense activity, your muscles are probably going to be breaking down a little bit, and that's okay. That's what we train them up for. But if we have some proteins, our muscles will be able to recover overnight and still be feeling good the next day. Continue to hydrate, replenish electrolytes. Again, after a full day of playing, especially in hot weather, especially when it's super humid, you want to replenish those electrolytes and that water to make sure that you, A, sleep well, and B, that you're feeling good the next day. So fruit, really great, super easy to digest, has a lot of water in it, and some carbs as well. And, electrolyte drinker pack into your hydration for that night, the next day, super important. Plenty of stretching before you leave the fields on Saturday and Sunday. A lot of teams will, of course, do this on Sunday to give them an opportunity to recap what happened that weekend. But Saturday before you leave the field, it's arguably more important to stretch, because that is the day when you want to make sure your muscles are still in good shape so you can play the next day. So stretching out will make sure your muscles don't stay tight after you leave the field, and they'll help them to not be as sore, not be as strained for the next day. Stay up on your injury routines and mobility. Usually, if you have a nagging injury, especially if you play a lot on Saturday, it's going to be flaring up on Saturday night. It's going to be causing you pain. So, whatever you do to mitigate that pain normally after a practice or a training session, to keep those joints feeling good, you want to be doing that, if not doing it more on Saturday night, because again, you have to get ready to play Sunday. So taking care of that pain, reducing it, keeping those joints healthy is something that you're gonna want to prioritize. And just mobility in general. Again, it's super helpful for injury prevention to keep your joints moving in their full range of motion, and stuff like that. So make sure you stay up on that, especially if it's something that you do regularly. Why skip out on it on a tournament night, right? This is like our super important days. So stay up on that. And sleep. Sleep is hugely important. Now, there's different resources on sleep. I've heard of things that say you only need 4 hours of sleep to be at your best physically, and, the rest of that will kind of help you to, process things emotionally and mentally. Whatever the case is, getting extra sleep on days between tournaments will help you feel better. You know how you feel on a day where you don't get enough sleep. You know how you feel when you get a good night's sleep, and just that alone should be enough to convince you that sleep should be a huge priority for you between tournaments. So honestly, that trumps almost all the other things. Make sure you get enough sleep. Make sure you're feeling good when you wake up the next morning, and that is huge. Here's some resources I use. A lot of this stuff is kind of things I've been learning over a long time, so this is in no way comprehensive, but all of these videos, and I'll put them in the description on YouTube, are all super, super helpful, help you dive deeper into all this stuff, and I just find it super fascinating. So if you're like me, you will also find all of these things fascinating. So thank you all for watching. For everybody in the community, I'll see you next week, if not sooner, in our next call. So stay healthy, keep training, and yeah, peace.